Human conversation is, well, it's far more than just an exchange of information. It's not just transferring data points from my brain into yours. It is literally the architecture of our shared life. It's how we figure out who we are, how we connect with the people around us, and how we actually form communities. Today in this explainer, we're going to explore a deeply compelling framework for understanding this architecture. It's a way of looking at human connection that asks a really simple yet totally profound question about how we spend our time, and maybe more importantly, who or what we spend it with. I want you to start by picturing a really simple mental image. Just a quiet room. And inside this room, there are 4 empty chairs. At first glance, I know it's a completely mundane setting. But as we look a little closer, we realize that each of these seats represents a vastly different but deeply vital kind of human conversation. Understanding exactly who gets to sit in these chairs reveals so much about how we construct our inner and outer worlds, and what happens when the balance in this room gets completely disrupted. All right, let's dive into part 1. The first chair, the foundation of conversation. So we have to begin with the foundation. This is chair 1, solitude. And when we say solitude, we're talking about the ability to just sit with oneself, to think, to reflect, and most importantly, to actually hear your own mind. Now, a really crucial distinction we need to make right off the bat is that solitude absolutely does not mean loneliness. Loneliness is that panic of feeling disconnected, right? Solitude, on the other hand, is the capacity to be comfortably alone. It's how we build a secure inner life. By learning to be alone with our thoughts, we figure out who we are. And it's only when we know who we are that we're actually prepared to meet other people authentically without just using them to prop up our own fragile sense of identity. Think about this concrete scene for a second. Imagine someone sitting completely alone on a park bench, or maybe just in a quiet living room, and they aren't immediately reaching for a screen or some other distraction. Slowly, they just begin noticing their own thoughts. Without this foundational chair, we completely lose self-reflection. We start to mistake simple boredom, which, by the way, is actually just an invitation for our imagination to wander. We mistake it for a problem that urgently needs to be solved by looking at something external. If we don't have this first chair, we end up bringing a totally empty self to the rest of the room. Moving on to part 2, the second chair, the space for empathy. Okay, so once we've learned how to comfortably sit in the first chair, we're finally ready to invite someone else in. We move to this incredibly vulnerable space where 2 people actually face one another. This is chair 2, one-to-one conversation. This is the space where empathy, intimacy, apology, repair, and genuine mutual understanding actually develop. And let me tell you, this chair demands a lot from us. It demands eye contact, it demands careful listening, and it absolutely demands a willingness to endure the necessary discomfort of a real, raw human response. When you're face-to-face with someone, they ask for things. They ask for your attention, your patience, and your emotional presence in real time. Picture 2 people facing each other right after a massive conflict, sitting in that really heavy, difficult silence, just trying to speak honestly. The crucial takeaway here is that true repair and true forgiveness, they require a human being who can misunderstand you. Someone who can feel hurt, who can express that pain, and who can, ultimately, empathize with you. You literally cannot rush this. You're going to stumble, you have to tolerate those agonizingly uncomfortable pauses, and you just have to endure the friction. But that friction, that is exactly where empathy is forged. You only learn to put yourself in someone else's shoes precisely because you are looking right into their eyes. That brings us to part 3, the third chair, the fabric of society. From the deeply intimate space of the second chair, we eventually have to zoom out. We transition from the personal out to the collective, exploring how conversation shapes our broader world and the actual communities we live in. And this brings us to chair 3, group conversation. This represents those settings where we learn how to speak, listen, disagree, cooperate, and truly belong to a group. We're talking about the space of families, classrooms, workplaces, and neighborhoods. If the second chair is all about intimacy, well, the third chair is about public life and social cohesion. It's the place where we finally discover that, hey, the world doesn't actually revolve entirely around us. Think of a chaotic family meal where everyone is kind of talking over each other, or a passionate classroom discussion about history, maybe a really tense team meeting at work, or even a local town hall gathering. In these spaces, people have to listen to more than one voice. They have to wait their turn, sometimes impatiently, and respond thoughtfully. These environments literally force us to tolerate the friction of differing opinions, absorb diverse perspectives, and build a shared life together. It's in the third chair that we learn the absolutely vital skills of citizenship and collaboration. Let's just step back for a second and see how this all builds into a really beautiful, interconnected system. It's like a virtuous circle. First, solitude breeds the inner security you need to comfortably listen to others. Second, because you're secure, you can engage in the deep empathy required for one-to-one conversation. Third, you take those empathetic skills out into society to cooperate and belong. And finally, engaging with the rich, wildly complex social world of the third chair provides us with all this fascinating material that we then reflect on when we return back to the solitude of the first chair. It's an amazing cycle, and it completely sustains our humanity. Now we arrive at part 4, the fourth chair, the disruption. Recently, something really fundamental has shifted in this room we've been building. A completely new, unexpected seat has been pulled up to our metaphorical table, and it is totally changing the dynamics of the entire room. We arrive at chair 4, the artificial arrival. This chair represents our conversations with, or sometimes through, machines and technology. Now, let's be super clear about this. This new chair is highly, highly useful. It offers convenience, instant access to information, and all sorts of novel ways to perform our daily tasks. But the deeper issue? The issue is that it fundamentally alters our expectations of what a conversation should even be. It introduces the seductive idea of a friction-free interaction into a room that used to be defined by the necessary, beautiful friction of human relationships. Consider this deeply unsettling scene for a moment. Someone asking a machine, a digital assistant, or an AI chat program for comfort, advice, or emotional support, simply because it feels easier than talking to a real person. It's cleaner. It's incredibly predictable. The machine won't judge you, it's never going to be bored by your stories, and it doesn't demand anything in return. It offers this glossy illusion of companionship, but entirely without the heavy, messy, exhausting demands of true intimacy. You can almost imagine a room where a phone or a smart device seems to physically occupy one of those seats, constantly demanding attention from everyone else, even when no one explicitly says it does. The danger of relying on this fourth chair is profound. Why? Because machines do not have human vulnerability. They don't have memory in the human sense. They don't experience suffering, and they hold absolutely zero moral responsibility. When we substitute the second chair for the fourth chair, we're talking to an entity that cannot truly empathize, simply because it has nothing at stake. And this brings us to the core tension we face today. On one side, we have human conversation. It's messy, it's vulnerable, it's occasionally super boring, filled with necessary friction, and yet deeply, deeply rewarding. On the exact opposite side, we have machine connection. It's predictable, highly curated, delightfully friction-free, but ultimately hollow. The risk here is that when we get too used to the fourth chair, we start treating the other chairs differently. We actually start wishing human beings were as low-maintenance, predictable, and easy to edit as our digital interactions. Which leads into part 5, the cascading effect, and what we actually stand to lose. When the balance in this room is lost, it creates a massive domino effect. Think about it. Without the first chair of solitude, we lose self-reflection and the ability to actually know our own minds. Without the second chair of one-to-one conversation, we lose intimacy, true empathy, and the crucial ability to repair our relationships. Without the third chair of group conversation, we completely lose our community and our ability to cooperate with people who are different from us. And if the fourth chair, the machine, takes over and entirely displaces the others, the ultimate risk is that we just forget what human conversation is actually for. We forget that it's not just about exchanging data. It's about remaining human.
Finally, part 6, reclaiming the room and giving every chair its proper place.
Now, I don't want you to leave this explainer feeling hopeless. This is definitely not a message of despair, and it's certainly not a call to smash all our devices. The real goal here is reclamation. We need to intentionally design our lives so that every single chair has its proper designated place. Consider this really powerful thought. In the end, we will be defined not only by what we create, but by what we refuse to destroy. We have created some truly wondrous, incredible things in that fourth chair, but we must absolutely refuse to destroy the sacred spaces of the first, second, and third chairs. We have to deliberately protect our time for solitude, guard our spaces for uninterrupted empathy, and preserve our public forums for community gathering. We have to ensure that technology serves our human conversations, rather than silently replacing them. I want to leave you with one final thought to reflect on as you go about your day and navigate your own daily interactions. Look around the room of your own life. Really look at it. If we give the fourth chair all of our attention, who exactly are we leaving standing?